Welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. And this week, here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the universe, except not. We're talking about the old guard. Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and are joined each week by a very special different guest. Me and this guest go way back. Give it up, Capers, for James Jimbo Green.
Hello, PodCapers.
Hello to you there. Do you prefer... I can never remember. Do you prefer James or Jimbo? I
Honestly,
always called you James.
No. Honestly, go with Jimbo. I used to hate it as a kid, but I've kind of adopted it as I've grown older, and now it's just me. You know, it's my superhero identity, if you will.
Ah, I get it. Because it's weird because, for two reasons. First of all, my dad's name is Jim, so it's kind of weird calling someone else Jim or anything Jim related. But also because, here's the thing, Capers, Jimbo and I went to university together with Mark Russell.
We were the Three Caballeros.
Yes, except I hated that name because that's a Disney reference, and even back then I hated Disney, and you know that. You know that about me.
I do indeed.
Oh, God. Yeah, so we go way back, and we recently reconnected because I invited Jimbo to be on our very special episode of PodCapers that I'm going to keep slightly under wraps for now, but trust me, Capers, you'll know in good time about that episode. But in the meantime, I wanted him to come on the pod to talk about the old guard. Now, here's the thing. I saw the trailer for this a while ago and I thought, wow, that looks shit. And then I saw it. I like it. Do you like it?
Me, I'm kind of in the middle about it. Like, I'm a bit weird about films. Like, I'm not a snob. I can happily enjoy a bad movie. One of my personal favourite films is Wild Wild West.
Oh, well, isn't that all of our favourites? It's near and dear to all of our hearts. I find it difficult, but not impossible, to hate any movie that Kevin Kline is in.
It's a wiki wild time, I can tell you that much. But yeah, my philosophy has always been, you can like any movie, but you also have to acknowledge sometimes if they're a little bit crap. And that's how I look at Wild Wild West. I love it, but I realise it's not really that good overall. But yeah,
I mean, any movie that has a giant steampunk spider in it's got to have something going for it.
Well, especially considering its kind of weird legacy ties to the Nicolas Cage Superman movie. Look it up, everyone. Yeah. It's a wild ride.
Look up Kevin Smith talking about it. It's just... Anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you see the trailer for this?
No, I did not.
Because the trailer, I mean, trailers, I hate trailers. I love trailers, but I hate trailers because I never ever know now if that means I should go see the movie, because I've seen trailers that look really good and the movie turns out shit. What was that Will Smith movie? Another Will Smith movie, not Wild Wild West, about where he like meets with death, time, and I don't know, love or something.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about. Will's had a weird time lately. A lot of his films have kind of been a bit lackluster all over the place, especially Gemini Man. That was that was something, all right. I mean, hey, double the will, double the money.
I know, but here's the thing with that movie, though. The trailer looked really good, and then I went and saw it, and I thought, wow, this is shit. And now I've seen this movie, and the trailer was shit, but I actually like the movie, and I realised trailers mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. There's no way to guarantee whether a movie will be bad or good based on the trailer. And for one, I'm really glad that I gave this movie a chance, partially because... you know, it was getting a bit of traction online. People saying, oh, it's really good. And I was like, really? Well, I must investigate. And here's the thing. When you say you're kind of in the middle of it, I get why. But I think there's really something here. And I think it's because this movie isn't a cash grab. At least it doesn't feel like a cash grab. It feels like something that was made out of genuine effort. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the biggest passion project ever, but you know what? Let's see if we can't do something with this.
No. I definitely agree with that much. There's one of the most consistent praisings I've seen about this movie is for a made by Netflix film with something like a $70 million budget, which I know sounds like a lot, but realistically, when it comes to making films, that's nothing. It looks good enough to be in the cinema, and that's a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like for anything on that kind of budget, because I mean, I'm pretty sure like Roger Corman movies are made for. Actually, no, Roger Corman made for about 1 million. But do you know what I mean? Like, there are a hell of a lot lower budget films or higher budget films than that don't even get anywhere near cinema.
Yeah, this feels like something that Robert Rodriguez would cook up. Maybe a bit more down to earth than something he's done, but yeah, and it has this sort of real effort behind it, and a lot of that comes from the cast and their performances. A lot of the characters kind of subdued in this. They're not, sparkle, razzle dazzle, but there's enough of a solid foundation for character there that you can really and truly believe in what these people are doing. And I think that it really, really makes the film. And we're going to get into all of that right now. We're not wasting any time on this. Let's get straight into it. So this movie doesn't sort of fuck around with the premise of the movie. It becomes pretty apparent after a while what the movie is about, even if you haven't seen any of the trailers or whatever. But for those of you who just want a bit of a deep dive, let's throw you in the deep end sort of thing, what it's about is a group of people who are immortal. Properly immortal, cut their head off, presumably they'll be fine. Take that, Colin McLeod! But, and what they do is, they don't just lay around all day. No. They go around the world trying to solve problems with violence, and that's sort of what they dedicate their lives to. And that's not a bad premise for any kind of story, to be perfectly honest. But that's not what drives this movie forward. What drives this movie forward are the characters themselves and the interactions with each other. So we're introduced to Andy, who's played by Charlize Theron, Booker, played by the fucking Belgian with the impronounceable surname.
Give me a second. Matthias Schoenaerts?
I think that's probably the closest we're ever going to get to it, yep. Nikki, played by Luca Marinelli, and Joe, played by Marwan Kenzari. And I love the fact that Marwan Kenzari is in this because I ripped into him when he played Jafar in Aladdin. And now he's in this movie and he actually does a very, very good performance. Like, it's probably my favorite performance in the whole movie, which is saying something, to be honest. And I'm just like, I really hope this guy has a career beyond being known as Bad Hot Jafar.
Well, it's funny actually. I on my notes I noted down like what other films some of these actors have been in that I would have personally seen, and it's weird that I've seen like 2 other films, including New Aladdin with him in. He's in Tom Cruise's Mummy. You know,
yes, I forgot.
Yeah,
No.
he's just like the lead like security guy for Russell fighting around the world Crowe when he's playing Mr. Jekyll, and he's also in Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express.
Really? I forgot about.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
To be fair, there's so many massive actors in there. It's a regular smorgasbord of like actors, so it's very easy to like get anyone lost in the distance. In the crowd. It's just so many people in it.
And it's just like it just further shows that Disney is poison to everyone because he's so crap in that movie. He really is genuinely crap. And now he's in this movie and he's so good. And it's like, good for you, man. Way to prove me wrong. And instantly, when all these characters meet, you can tell that they've been apart for a bit of a while and they're really glad to see each other. And they feel like just really old friends. And it's very hard to establish that kind of chemistry and that kind of connection when you're barely 5 minutes into the movie. And they do that very well, I thought.
There's that beautiful scene. There's a beautiful scene where they all meet together, as you said, and they just initially chat for a little bit, and then one of them gets out some baklava, and then they play a little betting game on if Andy can figure out how, like, what the exact contents of it is. And it's, as you know, you're saying, Scott, there's so much chemistry there. Like, all the actors, they feel like friends. They feel like they've known each other for years. It's surprisingly, impressive for this kind of, this early in the film, for these people to really click in such a manner.
And that's down to good writing, but it's also down to good actor chemistry. I don't know, anything about the behind the scenes stuff I know a few things, but in terms of the actors, clearly they just all got on and really clicked professionally and managed to create some real history there without us having to be shown the history. We do get shown a little bit of history with all of these characters, and they do talk about how they all ended up together, but we don't get that right at the beginning. We get that later on. And they just firmly establish a foundation of camaraderie right from the get-go. And it's really, really great. However, it is immediately preceded by a really stupid bit where they're in Morocco, and Andy and Booker are walking through a hotel, and there's this group of tourists behind them who are like, hey, let's take a selfie! And then they actually accidentally get Andy in the photo. And then she goes like, hey, do you want me to take a photo? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then she goes and deletes the photo. And I'm like, okay, fine, cool, because she doesn't want to be shown in the photos. Fine, that's fine. But it takes her like a good solid 30 seconds to delete the photo and then take another picture. And it's like, they already had the camera all set up for you. It's not going to take that long to take a photo, and none of those people get at all suspicious.
Oh, there's bigger breaches of logic in this movie than just that. Plus, to be fair, I like it because it adds a subtle little element of like, oh wait, I'm an immortal. How does this latest Apple phone work? Give me a moment.
Maybe. Although
whether that was intended or not is, up in the air. But I don't know. I just kind of looked at it like that. I was, that's kind of a neat little thing.
Yeah, but the reason they all get together is because, like we said, they go around the world, fighting around the world again. But they do it by getting involved in hostage rescue and various sort of covert military operations, I guess. And they've been doing this for centuries.
Black Ops,
indeed. Except without microtransactions. But so it turns out that Booker has got them in contact with a former CIA guy, Copley, played by, let's see if I can get this right.
I have the phonetic spelling if you want me to take the...
I want to try this, because I've gotten this guy's name wrong before, and I want to try and get it right. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yes, the phonetic spelling I've got is exactly that. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Okay, I think yours is slightly better, but I was good enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Baron Mordo. I tried.
And hey, it's not just Baron Mordo. It's new movie Scar and the assassin from Serenity.
Okay, I'll take Assassin over Serenity, but don't remind me of the new Lion King. Don't do that to me. Not now. I thought we were friends.
Oh, I'm here to torment you, Scott.
If Mark, now you.
If Mark is the angel on your shoulder, then I'm definitely the devil.
Oh, God. So, this CIA guy, Copley, it turns out they worked for him before. And I was like, whoa, we don't do repeats because we've got to be anonymous. Because if people ever found out about us, chaos, carnage. Because like, no, this guy, it's really important. There's a bunch of people kidnapped in Sudan. And Andy at this point is kind of being, this is, her full name is Andromache of Scythia. Scythia? I
think it's Scythia. I could be wrong though.
Scythia, which is like an ancient country from antiquity. So she is well over 2,000 years old. Gotta be, right?
I think they leave it kind of open, but in the. Do you mind if I mention about the comics here?
No, because here's the thing. This is based on a graphic novel, which I have not read, but Jimbo thankfully has, so take it away.
In the comics, she says she's 600, I believe it's 672 years old, and she also gets it down to the months and days. So she is...
Which is tricky considering all the change of calendars there have been over the centuries. So,
oh, God, yeah.
But, Scythia... that was around during the times of ancient Rome. Scythia, I think.
Well, one thing they point out interestingly, she says she's 6,000, but that actually predates Scythia.
Ah, oh, okay.
So she literally adopted
a
name from somewhere else.
Scott married you of Mercia.
Exactly. I am Marcus Aurelius Jimbo of Rome. but you're like 5,000 to 10,000 years old. Yeah, but I like the name Rome, so I just added it into my name.
Yeah. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so what she's really sort of she's sort of losing faith in humanity. She doesn't believe that the work they're doing is having any sort of positive impact on the world, because we see her watching like news reports of all the various crises over the world. And I feel like someone should sit her down and just say the bloody obvious, which is, Andy, sweetie, this is technically the most peaceful time in all of human history. It just seems like everything's shit because we have the 24-hour news cycle and the internet, and so we've got way more information about all the crap that's going on in the world. But I guarantee you, if we'd had that shit in the Middle Ages, things would have seen way, way worse.
Well, she's cynical. You know, the world has ground her down over the years. Is that kind of Greco-Roman? You know, you're rolling a ball up a hill and it constantly falls back down again. You know, from her perspective, no matter how many people she kills, no matter how long she lives, as she sees, nothing ever changes. People still kill each other over meaningless things.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you can understand her position, but nevertheless, Booker managed to convince her, like, "Hey, it's really important that we do this," and she's like, "Okay, great." And so they infiltrate this terrorist compound where they're presumably holding all these prisoners, and it's really cool because they use guns, but they also use like swords and axes and shit. Because like it's another tool at their disposal, and being that they're all like several hundred years old, as the youngest of them is, they're all really, really fucking good at it.
Yeah, the anachronistic weapons are quite impressive, especially when they're when they're thrown into the close combat scenes. I did have a bit of a gripe with this, but it was only because they did the age-old trope of silenced guns. Now, in real life, a silenced gun is still quite loud. It's, you know, not ultra loud, but it's still pretty loud. And I'm like, okay, I'm used to this. They do it in action movies all the time. But then when they had a silent sniper rifle that literally goes, whip, and blows a dude's head off, I'm like, this is insane, guys. Now, admittedly, this is me being nitpicky, but it's one of those tropes that you know, it's one of the things that I have. One of my semi grievances about this film is that it's very tropey at times, very, very tropey. But I digress.
Tropes can sometimes be good when they're used appropriately or used for subversion. And I think there's a mix of that, but also like the tired, cliched sort of tropes in this movie as well. So it is a bit of a mix.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of tired ones, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. And so they locate where the prisoners are being held. They go in there and they immediately see that it's a big, empty, blank metal room. And they don't immediately think, "Oh shit, trap," and walk out. They take the time to walk into the middle of the room, and then they realize, "Oh shit, trap," and do nothing as a squad of goons burst out from behind the walls and machine gun them all to death.
Now, here's another one of my kind of trope grievances. As Scott said, the movie starts up with Andy coming in, but there's an initial small prelude of her basically lying on the floor after getting shot with a little like philosophical speech where she's like, "Oh, will this be the final time that I get killed?" Yada yada yada. And from my perspective, when I'm watching this, I'm like, if you'd cut that off, which is not long, this is a 2 hour and 5 minute movie. If you'd cut that scene out, that's maybe a minute or two you'd save. But also,
I say it was more like 30 seconds or something. It really wasn't that long at all.
Either way, you cut that out, and then you have no idea that they're immortal. I mean, other than the advertising and whatnot. But, you know, just ignore that. You show this film to any rando, and they go, "Oh, this is just an action movie. Oh, they've got swords and axes. Bit weird, but whatever." But then after they'd shot and then get back up again because, hey, they're immortal, it would have so much more impact. You'd be going, "Wait, what?" You know, think like Psycho when you know, halfway through the movie, the main big actress gets murdered horribly. Nobody expected that. Similarly, oh look, here's our entire cast of characters and they're military badasses. Oh, they're going in to save some people. Oh, it's a trap. Oh, wait, they've all been gunned down like animals? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because not a lot of... I mean, I watch trailers, but not a lot of people these days watch trailers. They just see, oh, something's come up with the feed. Oh, The Old Guard. Oh, it's on Netflix. Well, I've got a couple of hours to spare due to the, you know, stuff that's going on in the world right now. I can spend some time to watch that. Uh-oh, they're immortal. Did not see that coming. It could have been, as you say, a good subversion, but they didn't do it. Having said that, though, the bit where they all sort of wake up and spit the bullets out and start butchering those soldiers, that is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got the full Hugh Jackman, Wolverine vibe, as you said, spitting bullets out, they're popping out of wounds, bones are re-clicking into place. I love that they at least added why the goons didn't immediately notice and gunned them down when they started like crawling about a bit. Was like they'd expended their entire ammo. They'd literally unloaded everything in their assault rifles on these guys, and then they're just standing around giggling and chatting to each other. And then as soon as they turn around and notice, by then they've just noticed the guys are about halfway back up, getting up again, getting their swords and their guns ready, and then
And
they're
they're like,
hurriedly trying
reload,
to
reload,
yeah, they're,
shit.
they're desperately trying to reload, and it's just like no, it's too late now. It's time to rip and tear.
Oh god, and they wonder like, what's going on? Is this a trap? Then they notice that they've been filmed the entire time by Copley, who set them up. Dick move, Copley. And they're like, oh crap, well, we've got to get the fuck out of Dodge. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, that notoriously peaceful and, fun place to visit in the world, we see a couple of US soldiers, including one, Niall Freeman, who is played by, what's the fucking name?
Kiki Lane. They're U.S. Marines. Semper Fi.
Except Kiki Lane's Niall is not so much chest-thumping, Semper Fi kind. She actually seems quite nice. I mean, immediately we get a sort of save the cat moment with... Can you tell we were both in screenwriting classes?
Oh, yeah.
Save the cat moment with Niall as she's handing out sweeties to all the little Afghani children. Isn't that nice? And then she's told to go into this room with a lot of women in them while the translator's speaking to try and find where this supposed separate insurgent is being held. They eventually get led to him, take him down, and while she's trying to, patch him up to stop him from dying, because apparently he's wanted alive, he gets a knife and he slices her throat right the fuck open. And
Can I say, before we move on, I really like this scene because of two major things. One, it features a lot of women in a military context with boots on the ground. You don't see that a lot, even in modern action movies. And two,
No.
they actually show like a somewhat realistic, from my understanding, depiction of how the military works in that kind of area. With okay, I have a native translator with me who is helping me to like deal with the situation, and they're dealing with like the women who are being oppressed by the local insurgent terrorist kind of group. And again, it's not something you see a lot of. Usually it's just dudes kicking the door in and then just and they either they ignore it or they never even mention it. And I'm like, this is cool to see. You don't see this a lot. It's a nice little bit of realism in an otherwise a little bit over the top film at times.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Little things like that kind of ground the film and make the more exceptional things, the more outlandish things, that much easier to absorb, because it's not balls to the wall insane all the time, which can be fun in its own right, but it means we can take the film just a bit more seriously.
Well, that's what really helps, because this film, I keep seeing it everywhere. It's advertised as a superhero movie, and I would completely disagree with that. This is not a superhero movie. I would personally say this is an urban fantasy movie because it's set in a realistic world with some fantastical elements, but there's no capes, there's no tights, there's no world domination, there's no anything like that. It's just this could be a generic military movie. The only difference is the characters are immortal. That's literally it.
Yeah, and because that was superhero genre in of itself, it's kind of a vague concept. We don't need to vague it up even more by including this in it. It's fine on its own thing. And while though she's getting her throat slit, she suddenly has a disturbing dream about all the other mortals who are also having a dream of her while they're riding on a train. And we see them all scattered throughout the train carriage, although Joe and Nikki are sort of hugging in their sleep, and it's just like, ooh, is something going on there? Are they cuddle buddies, or is it something more? It's very much something more. They are together.
It's very adorable.
They're together. They're a couple, and it is the most adorable thing in the entire world. And oh god, there's so many more scenes between them that are just adorable. And again, these actors have such great chemistry beyond the friendship. They seem like really tenderly, romantically involved. And I think a lot of it is because this movie was written by Greg Rucka, who wrote the Old Guard graphic novel. And as part of his contract for him, writing the movie and him being involved in production and everything like that, he stipulated in writing that they had to be together. They had to be an explicit on-screen gay couple. And there's a big romantic scene that came out later on, which we're going to discuss in further detail, had to be included in the movie. And can I just say, Greg Rucka, you are now my most favorite person in the entire world because of this.
It takes some balls to literally hinge your entire contract on, hey, mainstream Hollywood, I will not do this movie unless you accept this on-screen gay couple who openly love each other and openly kiss and openly show affection. I'm not accepting any BS. I don't want you, monkeying with it in any way. You either put this in or you don't get me.
And considering that, as far as I'm aware, in the writing world beyond the graphic novel, he's a relative unknown. I mean, let's be honest, people with far more established careers than Greg Rucka would not take that risk, and he did it. And so my salute you, sir. Here is your Medal of Bravery. Your GLAAD award is in the post, I'm assuming. It's it's so good. It's so good. And here's the thing, they don't immediately wander on the screen holding hands and saying, yep, we're immortal gay lovers. No, it's just the first time we ever get that instance of them, they're clearly together, in an explicit way at least, is them just sort of cuddling together whilst they're asleep. And that's all you really need to do.
I get what you mean. It's organic. You want an organic. Or you would personally like an organic intro to that kind of thing, which I get. I mean, it's horses for courses. Some people like one, others like the other. It's all down to personal taste.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the story you're telling. Sometimes different films or different genres call for different approaches to that sort of thing. In this sort of movie, this is the best way to do it. But their cuddle session is interrupted when they all get violent dreams about Niall. They start compiling all the information from their dreams to try and track down exactly who she is. And it's like, God damn it, it's only been 200 years since the last one. Jeez, we can't do this now. We've got to deal with this now while this whole Copley thing is going on. And they're like, we got to track her down right now because, this is the beginning of a big thing for her. And she can't be alone in this because, you know what that's like, Andy, because you were the first one out of all of us. And it's not fun being alone and when you're immortal. So she's like, okay, fine. You guys go ahead on to Paris. I'm going to go and grab her. While they're just saying that, meanwhile, Niall is waking up in a field hospital, completely healed, and everyone in the base is just like, okay, so she had her throat basically cut open, and now she's fine, and there isn't even a scar.
Well, to be fair, they do try and play it off a little bit with one of the other characters even pointing out, it's like, look, if you get a cut on your neck, it will bleed like mad. You think you saw her throat slit wide open. You probably saw it cut a bit, but then blood was just everywhere, and in the heat of combat, you just completely, you hallucinated the rest to a degree. As you say though, the thing that kind of throws people off a bit is when she's like, so show us your battle trophy, show us your scar, and they're like, there's nothing there. Why is there nothing there? And the best Niles can assume, or even say, is like, well, the doctors gave me a skin graft. And even they're like, is that what the doctors told you? And they kind of cut to the doctor a little bit, and she's a little bit like mystified. So yeah, it's everyone kind of treats her a little bit odd.
There's a lot of rumors, a lot of whispering, a lot of exchanging glances, and then she's basically told, okay, so we are shipping you off to Germany.
For more tests, which, considering we've already had, like, the Immortals have been found out. It's this could get a bit hairy.
Thankfully, though, she is saved from being abducted by Andy, who just so happens to perfectly track down her location to this military base in the middle of Afghanistan, sneak onto said base with no one seeing her, and take out. I mean, I could get her taking out the people that are going to abduct Niles, but the sneaking onto the base. How did she do that?
She's a 6,000-year-old badass.
Wearing black in the middle of the desert. She sticks out.
Badass.
I don't know. And so she saves Niall from being kidnapped, and then promptly kidnaps her, sticks her in a car, drives her off into the middle of the desert. Niall's managed to I keep on calling her Niles. She's not a character from Frasier.
Yeah, I do that unfortunately as well because I say Nile and then my brain's like, oh, it's Niles. I'm like, no, she doesn't want tossed salad and scrambled eggs.
Oh god. So Nile, I'm just gonna call her Freeman because they mainly call her Freeman in the movie anyway. So Freeman. Now I'm thinking of Half-Life. Ah!
Maybe Old is Half-Life 3.
Oh, how? We've got it. We're never going to get Half-Life 3. That is the rule of the universe. But anyway, so she runs away out of the car in the middle of the desert, and Annie's just like, ugh, don't have time for this, and she shoots her in the head.
It's a clean shot as well.
It's a very clean shot. Like I say, she's very good at what she does. But also, if I had to convince someone that they were immortal and couldn't die permanently, that is how I would do it. Just like, okay, you don't believe me? Fine. Bang. Gotta hope this works. Hope it works. Oh, she's fine. It's all good. And it's basically said, and here's the thing. I love how Andy could sort of gently break it to her and sort of piecemeal the information to her, but she says, nope, you're immortal. I'm immortal. I'm part of a group of immortals that go around the world solving problems. You're one of us now. Deal with it, sister.
Yeah, I was a little bit thrown off by how long it takes Freeman to really get on board with this. Maybe it's just because, again, this is kind of one of those tropes that's been done to death a bit, but it's like, no, I can't be immortal. This is crazy. It's like, you got shot in the head, and this is 2020. There's been tons of immortal fiction everywhere. You can't fall over. You can't walk without falling over a story about some immortal somewhere. You should get this pretty quickly.
Do we have to show you some more Anne Rice novels? I don't want to do that.
How many times do I have to shoot you before you understand this? Which again is as you say, Scott, is a nice takedown of just like, I could talk to you, I could gently explain this, I could talk to you about the philosophy of life and death, or I could just put a bullet in you and then throw your dumb ass back in the Hummer while we drive off to deal with this situation right now before more shit goes down.
And in fairness, though, they do sort of drive the plot home a bit more with Freeman because they go on a plane which is being operated by this Russian drug runner guy, and Andy wakes up later to find out she's been handcuffed and that Freeman is holding the pilot at gunpoint and is saying like, okay, so you're going to land this plane now and I'm in charge now, which is like, okay, yeah, you're in charge? Okay, fine. Shoots the pilot. Uh-oh, the plane is crashing. And Freeman's like, what are you doing? You're going to get us killed. And Andy's like, nope. It's just worst case scenario. We've got a bit of a walk ahead of us. Like, we'll be fine. We'll just jump out. And turns out she didn't shoot the pilot at all. It was just she tricked Niall. But I also thought that was a very good way of doing it. Like, you see how unconcerned Andy is.
You're breaking up slightly, Scott.
Who I am? How about now?
Yeah, you're crackling slightly. I mean, I don't know if this is going to affect the end product, but
no, it won't. It won't because it's recorded separately. But I think it just might be
okay. I can just. It's just you drop in and out occasionally. To me, it's not a problem. I should be able to like figure out where it is, but I'm just letting you know in case it affects the end goal on your end. If people are listening on your bit and you're going do you know what I mean?
No, I completely understand. I mean, I'm looking at Zencastr right now, and it's all recording fine, so that's all good.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I know you can just edit out everything I'm saying at this point. I'm just thought I better let you know just in case it affected you.
No, that's fine. Thank you for doing that. And what was I saying? And it really just drives home how Andy is completely and utterly unconcerned with dying because it's just an inconvenience for her. The only thing she's really scared of is being captured by someone. We find out more about that later on. And so Niall then pretty much gets on board and they go to this abandoned church in France, just outside of Paris, where it's revealed that no one goes because they're right underneath the path of like several airplanes and stuff. So I thought that was a nice touch.
It was genius. That house must be worth nothing at all. Plus, on the plane scene, one thing I really like is they set up an interesting scene, obviously, where Freeman basically threatens to kill the pilot, as you said, and they fake him being shot. Obviously, they set up that he's a drug runner as well. So when you think Charlize Theron has killed him, because he's faking his death, obviously, you don't feel bad because you're like, oh, she killed her friend. Wait, he is a drug dealer. He is a massive drug runner, so I shouldn't feel too bad. I was like,
Maybe
that's a
that was
nice
her
little
plan
touch.
all along, you know? And it's layers. It's layers of complexity where you're not quite sure what's going on, and I love it when films do that.
Like
And
a baklava.
Like a baklava, exactly. And so
It ties back to the baklava.
the baklava is like the glowing briefcase of this movie. Hello, you still there?
Yeah. Sorry, you just cut then suddenly, but yeah.
Okay, so while all that is going on, Copley shows the video of earlier of them getting killed and getting unkilled to Stephen Merrick, this big pharmaceutical bigwig, played by Harry Melling. Does Harry Melling look familiar to you?
Yes, because he is in fact Dudley Dursley.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I didn't recognize him. I sorted it. I was like, he looks familiar. Who is he? I swear I've seen him in something before. Who is he? Whatever. And then I found out he's Dudley Dursley, and apparently he just lost like a shit ton of weight, so he looks like a completely different person.
It's really interesting because in the last Harry Potter movie he was in, they were going to recast him, and he went, hey, I can just put a fat suit on, right, guys? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And now he's like, this is awesome. I can just put a fat suit on and off, and now I'm so slim, no one realizes I'm that character. Also, he's the grandson of the second Doctor from Doctor Who. He's Patrick Troughton's grandson.
Yeah, he's part of the big Troughton dynasty. It's actually kind of amazing, and glad I saw him in this movie. He's been in a few other things that I just haven't seen or noticed him in. So now I hope this is the start of something much bigger for him, or at least the continuation of something much bigger for him. So good on you, Harry Melling. Well done. And shows Stephen Merrick the footage. And it's like, okay, cool. With this, I could like heal the world and shit and make a profit. And I'm just thinking, like, I wonder if this is somewhat based on that Martin Shkreli guy.
Well, yeah, this guy Stephen Merrick. He's kind of a mixed bag for me, as I said about this film, because he is very clearly the most stereotypical Weasley pharmaceutical laboratory bad guy you'll ever get in any movie. He's very much just like, yes, I'll make profit out of everything. But at the same time, it's also incredibly clear he is very much based off Martin Shkreli, the quote-unquote pharma bro, who was known... infamous throughout the media for like upping the prices on ordinary medicines to something stupid like $500 a pop, that kind of money-minded, money over people kind of thing, which is interesting because normally when they go for evil businessman archetypes, they rip off usually Steve Jobs or lately Mark Zuckerberg or a mixture of the two. Martin Shkreli is a new one for this, so that's kind of interesting to see.
But a welcome one, because I personally despise anyone even remotely like that, and I think they're evil and should be buried in a ditch somewhere. But that's just me. And
there's a reason in my notes he is literally referred to as Farmer Bro the entire time.
The worst part is he's English, so that's like another layer of stereotypical bad guy on top of it.
Well, the funny thing as well is me calling him a farmer bro is in the comic he's completely different. He's American. He's like an overly muscular douchebag, and I'm like, so it kind of emphasizes more of the bro than the farmer part.
Damn it! Why do films insist on making English people the bastards? It's discrimination.
It is, my friend. Our wonderful accents.
I know. It's just like we could just use these accents to become instantly villainous. Did I cut out again?
No. I was trying to think of a retort, and I was like, nothing that won't seem anti-American. So it's best not to. I was gonna be like, happy Treason Day, colonials. But I was like, no.
Oh, you can be anti-American on this show. No one cares.
Fair. Happy Treason Day, colonials.
You spilled our tea, but we spilled your economy. I don't know.
But yeah.
They spill their own economy. Anyway, so they're like, okay, so go and capture these guys because I want to perform experiments on them. Yeah. And meanwhile, back at this French safe house, we find out a bit more about the Immortals, about how their immortality works. basically at some random point in their lives, it just sort of activates. They all get dreams about them, and they all have dreams about each other. Actually, whenever they're not together, it's just only when they only stop when they're all together in one place, giving them the implication that they sort of are meant to be together. It's very interesting. But also, we learn that their immortality at some random point, and there's no way of knowing it, just stops. Just stops. And so if you get wounded, normally it would just heal up on its own and you'd be fine. But sometimes it doesn't, and that's it. Your immortality is over. And I thought there was a really interesting aspect to it. They're not just immortal forever, or there's a certain type of thing that can kill you, like a vampire or something.
Or getting your head chopped off.
Or getting your head chopped off. And you have to wonder, actually, they never say what happens if these immortals get their heads chopped off. Because we see them like getting like almost blown up, and their brains getting blown out of their head, and then they're fine. What would happen if their head got chopped off?
They do touch upon it a little bit in the comics. Not, which, should I mention now, or should I leave for later?
Leave for later. Bring it back up when you feel it's appropriate. But they basically say, look, we have to be absolutely 100% tip-top secret about this, because if we don't, bad things happen. And the reason for that is because of this character, Quinn, who was the first other immortal Andy ever discovered, a Vietnamese lady who she traveled the world with until all bad things happened in England, I guess, because they were captured by a bunch of witch hunters, and because they couldn't kill them, they put Quinn inside an Iron Maiden and dropped her into the sea, where she's been drowning ever since.
Yeah, it was kind of overkill, because they're like, they're witches, so we'll hang them. They hang them. Oh, wait, they're still alive. Okay, we'll burn them. Wait, that's not going to work. Okay, well, they're too strong together because, these are peasants and their minds, they can't understand this in any capacity. They just assume it's evil. So they just split them up and then put her in an Iron Maiden and then go, we're going to dump her overboard. Now, this scene I found a tad egregious, not necessarily because it was too bad. The problem, however, was the Iron Maiden itself. I don't know if they actually shoved the actress in an Iron Maiden, but it looks to me like there was very poor CGI going on in the eye and mouth holes of it, because she is screaming all the entire time she's being dragged away. But the way I saw it, it looked almost like the annoying Orange, where they'd kind of CGI'd her face into the holes. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know anything about behind the scenes, but it just looked very peculiar and slightly off, which is why my brain immediately went, oh boy, this is some dodgy CG here, guys. But again, it's not, this scene isn't very long. It's not a huge focus of the movie. So they were probably like, if it is CGI, they're probably like, we can just shave a couple of hundred, maybe $1,000 off of this. We don't, no one's going to notice it.
I mean, my biggest problem with this scene was the fact that Iron Maidens technically were never used in medieval times. Like, that's a myth.
Yeah, but again, this is one of those, as grounded as it can be, it's also fantastical. So, plus it's, you've got to play to certain tropes and archetypes. And ideas, it's kind of referencing back to when I referred to myself as Marcus Aurelius, kind of like Gladiator, because that had it really badly, where Ridley Scott admitted he was like, look, I wanted to do certain things with this film, but I knew if I did them, people would say they're unrealistic, even though they're historically accurate. People are just so used to what people are so used to what they're told, and people are just used to the idea that Iron Maidens existed in like that kind of period.
Yeah, because the film Gladiator is very misrepresentative of the lives of gladiators, but no one gives a shit because they want to see fucking Russell Crowe fight some tigers and shit. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, the great thing about this movie compared to Gladiator is Gladiator, by and large, some interpretation there, had no fantastical elements. This movie does, so you can get away with more stuff.
Yeah, it gives you more leeway. You can go like, sure. There's immortal people in it.
I think you find that Iron Maidens didn't exist in those times. Yeah, well, neither did fucking immortal people. Pipe down. Yeah, it's that sort of mentality. And of course, Niall is not entirely happy about all of this and tries to book it, but Angie's like, you gotta face up to this. This isn't gonna go away. Trust me. And she's like, I don't want to be immortal. And this conversation is kind of gonna get repeated a few
It's
times.
it's very much your standard copy paste superhero teenager. I mean, he's not a teenager, but it's that kind of teenage mentality. I don't want to be special. I just want to be normal. It's like, you are blessed with awesome. Stop complaining.
I mean, if I were immortal, I'd be like, okay, I'm not entirely happy about this, vis-a-vis my family all dying and me having to watch them, and not being able to form any close human attachments. But also, cool, I get to be immortal. Like, there'd be a bit 50-50 there. We never see that.
Yeah, statistically speaking, like, you are going to outlive your parents. Most of the time you'll outlive your parents. So, that's one of the big things a lot of these movies are afraid of is, oh no, I'm going to see my family die. You're probably going to see your family die anyway.
I think it's more the fact that she's not going to age as well, so she's not going to be able to have any contact with her family unless they discover her secret, which would be bad, which is a legitimate dilemma, but especially if you're in a very close family like Niall supposedly is, even though we never actually see her interact with any member of her family in the movie.
They do at least point out something interesting where she's like, look, I'm at the right age right now where I can go back and be with them for a certain amount of time before they'll start to cotton on that something weird is going on. Like, she could feasibly live with them for 10, maybe even 15 years before she has to admittedly go like, look, I'm leaving for reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a very good point. They do bring that up. Unfortunately, while they're having this conversation, the group are all ambushed by a bunch of secret SWAT people under the control of Merrick, because apparently this movie actually brings it up, and it is kind of funny and how true to life it kind of is. Apparently, big pharma CEOs have access to their own personal private armies.
Yeah, that kind of that kind of idea is just hilarious. Where it's just, oh, what kind of pharmaceutical company has mercenaries under their thumb? Like, who doesn't have mercenaries under their thumb these days? Which is,
I mean, PMCs are a thing. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because if you look at it from a real world perspective, like there's like a big tie of like the Blackwater private military contractors who were like tied into a lot of the stuff going out in the Middle East, and even at one point, apparently, like President Trump suggested like they might retire the American military and just get mercenaries to do everything. So they're around, they're here. It's not just like your casual Dungeons and Dragons fare where it's like, no, I'm a mercenary for hire. It's like, no, there's soldiers of fortune still to this day. It's just
some of them are putting people in vans that are unmarked in Portland right now.
But either way, to get off of real politics, yeah, these the farmer bro does indeed have his own private army of goons in tactical armor, ready to go out and kick some ass in his name. Of course, and as is the way with this kind of movie, it's gonna. I have a strong suspicion the inverse ninja law will be in effect.
Ooh, what's the inverse ninja law?
The inverse ninja law, my friend, is incredibly simple. The more ninjas you have, the worse they are. So, for example, you have a single ninja in a movie. He will be an untouchable badass that will be able to kill anyone that goes near him, whether it be a protagonist or an antagonist. You have 1,000 ninjas, and suddenly they're utterly useless, and their katanas are made of rubber.
Oh my god, so many things make sense now.
Wolverine and Daredevil basically run off of the inverse ninja law. Look, it's the Hand. Hell, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles run off of inverse ninja law. Shredder alone is an amazing badass. 1,000 foot soldiers are literally idiots in pajamas.
I mean, you could also apply this to, say, stormtroopers.
Oh, dear God, yes. Well, remember, the infamous stormtrooper, Traitor.
Oh yeah.
He alone could stem the tide against Finn with a lightsaber. But all of his mates in a big gang die horribly like chumps.
Sir, do we get a line? No. We're dead, aren't we? Yes.
I'm played by Daniel Craig and Prince Harry.
Well, you're probably going to live then.
Yeah. Daniel Craig's one just got bonked on the head.
Oh, God. So, all of these ninjas, as you point out, rush in, and they do manage to semi-blow up Booker and capture Joe and Nikki, due to the fact that they've taken them somewhat by surprise. Thankfully, Andy and Niall were outside at the time, so they managed to evade capture, with Andy going in to kill as many of the disposable ninjas as she can. And this is where you truly, really get to see Andy's fighting skills solo. And I will never, in my wildest dreams, ever anger Charlize Theron, because she could kick my ass so easily just going by this movie. The fight scenes in this movie are so cool.
You've only learnt that now, my friend? You need to watch Atomic Blonde, then you'll truly be terrified.
I did watch Atomic Blonde, but then I promptly forgot a lot about Atomic Blonde. The graphic novel is slightly better, but anyway. So, I mean, she's doing all sorts of, hand-to-hand stuff, gunplay, axe play. It's just... and
there's also a saber, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's a saber, there's different kinds of swords, there's just a ton of great, cool, again, grounded fight scenes. It's not like Deadpool, where it's all, as much as I like Deadpool, where it's all showy and flashy and stuff, it's used for comedic effect. No, it's gritty, punchy, feel every single impact, but also still somewhat stylized and choreographed fighting.
Yeah, the choreography... I was sorry. I was going to say the choreography is really great. I do have a slight gripe that they kind of overly rely on shaky cam, which is... I know shaky cam is very much a preferred taste for people. Some people are fine with it, others aren't. Obviously, it's a stylistic choice at the end of the day. I just personally feel it's a little bit overused, not just in this film, but just in cinema in general. It feels like a very easy way to go, oh, well, here's a combat scene. Whoa, the camera's shaky to give you the feeling of punching somebody. But at the same time, I respect, as we mentioned earlier on, this is a very, a cheap-end movie at $70 million. So they probably can't afford like a high-end, combat choreographer to really go, obviously not saying this choreography is bad, but you know what I mean? A guy who can go, I want it to look exactly like this. You need to film it like this, do it this way, and it will look spectacular. They just went with the standard industry, shake that camera up a bit, but get those punches looking cool.
Yeah, but honestly, that's all you really need, to be honest. If the actor you're working with is committed enough and skilled enough, and you make it look like every impact hurts, that's all you really need. If you want to do something more stylistic, you can do that. But if you're going for something, again, more down to earth, this is what you need, and it works. And so
Definitely.
she wipes the floor with all the disposable ninjas, and Na's just like, holy shit, she's a fucking unstoppable monster. And Booker's like, yep. And so they book it, they leg it.
They cheese it right out there.
Cheese it right out of there. And Joe and Nikki, unfortunately, are captured and held in a van with a bunch of soldiers. And Joe's just like, hey, Nikki, are you okay? Are you okay? And the soldier's like, oh, what is he, your boyfriend? Boyfriend? And then he goes into like a minute and a half long rant about how Nikki is his fucking soulmate. And this is the scene that Greg Rucka demanded be in the movie. And you feel every word. And it's just like, oh, relationship goals. Oh, God. And then they kiss. And it's so sweet. And it's, oh, my God. I love them so much. I ship it. Can we have a movie with just them, please?
It is an incredibly beautiful and tender moment. And as I said before, it's very impressive to see this kind of scene on a, admittedly, this isn't in the cinema, but, this kind of Hollywood action movie, that they're mature enough to be like, no, this is perfectly fine. This is perfectly normal. Let's laugh at this. Let's laugh at this, generic goon for thinking he's funny, for making a homophobic joke. It's tender, it's real, it's loving. I'm totally down with it, and I would be happy to see more of this kind of stuff in more movies going forward. Maybe another old guard movie, or just generally any other action movies in the future.
Because it's just so sweet and so adorable, and I needed that now that She-Ra is over. And what makes it even better is when the van pulls up to an airport and they open the doors, they see all the guards are dead, and Joe and Nikki kill them all, and it's just like, oh, they're so cool.
There's a beautiful little moment as well when they're taken on a plane to be taken to the Farmer Bros lab. And and they're just like, oh, look, a plane. Hey, we're going on a plane. Hey, is there any champagne? Oh, look, there's a TV. They're like so nonchalant about this entire thing. They even say when the doors open, and while they're surrounded by the murdered corpses of all these goons, he's just like, so, you mind taking these chains off us? So relaxed about all this.
I mean, it helps. I mean, it's slightly annoying, but also, like, I get why. Is that they possibly have the most interesting backstories out of all of the Immortals, because it turns out they were a Saracen and a Crusader who fought against each other during the Crusades, killed each other a bunch of times, and then fell in love. I mean,
Yeah. Niccolo di Genova, an Italian crusader, and Yusuf al-Kaisani, a Saracen warrior. As you said, this could be a movie unto itself. Hell, this could be like a deleted scene from what was that big epic?
Kingdom of Heaven.
Yes, it could be a deleted scene from Kingdom of Heaven for all we know. It's such a cool.
Only good
thing.
because that movie was shit. But
that's the thing. Each of these characters could feasibly have spin-off movies. That's how much depth is theoretically there for all of these characters.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's some characters I care about more than others, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And I have a rule: I judge a movie based on what it is, not what I want it to be. I'm not going to judge this movie negatively for not being the Joe and Nikki Variety Hour. So we're just going to focus on what's good, and their relationship is so good. It's so good. That alone gives it the PodCapers seal of approval. But anyway, so Andy, Booker, and Niall go to this cave that's, again, been abandoned for centuries, where they just keep all of their shit that they picked up over the years. And
I think it's a mine. I think she said she discovered it. It was like an ancient mine or something, but obviously no one else has gotten near it. So she's like covered it up and hidden in rocks. But yeah, as you said, she's like loaded up all the historical artifacts from all their lives.
Yeah, and so she instructs Booker to like find out about Copley. They're going to try and track him down and try and find their friends. Meanwhile, she goes to get some supplies and realizes, "Ooh, my shoulder's giving me a bit of grief. Uh-oh, I'm wounded. That doesn't make any sense. I'm immortal. My wound's supposed to heal up instantly." And it turns out her immortality is gone. And that's the thing. Charlize Theron, the Andy, the immortal, is technically mortal for like half, 3/4 of the movie, 2/3 of the movie. And I thought that was a very interesting move on their part.
I'm very mixed on that personally. I feel it's kind of a little bit cheap for some more drama. I mean, I get it, I do understand, but I don't know. I don't know personally. As I said, I'm more mixed about this film, but
it feels very reminiscent of a lot of the plot in again going back to Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine movie.
I mean, one of my friends did say this film was described to him as X-Men meets Highlander, so.
Yeah, it makes sense. What I found particularly weird, though, was like she goes to this pharmacy to get like a bunch of stuff to patch herself up, and the woman at the checkout just sort of takes her around the back and helps patch her up without asking any questions. And like, I know you're French and therefore, apathetic by nature, but you don't have any questions. You don't feel the need to call the police. You're just happy to, attend medically this random woman that's walked into your shop.
Well, I saw this as more of this was very much a kind of a reverse pet the cat moment, where it's or pet the dog, as you say. You're petting an animal, a cute fuzzy animal, because it's one of the core themes of this movie has been Charlize Theron's character Andy is cynical and downtrodden, and she doesn't think it's worth they should bother trying to save humanity anymore because everyone's rotten and it's all full of phonies and everyone's miserable and unhappy and all they're doing is murdering each other over stupid things. So here she finds a spark of kindness in somebody willing to go out of their way to help her without any altruistically, and it's, as I said before, this is one of those tropes that it's like very obvious they've done it. It does its job. It does its job, but it's very much just a case of, oh, I can see what you're doing here. Thanks, guys.
It's I feel like that could have used a bit of a polish. Maybe there's some way they could have done it and not have it be like really, really not cheap, but just too obvious for me. But I mean, it's a minor point. She hides this fact from the other two immortals, goes back, and they locate Copley and head out to get him because it turns out he's in England. What a coincidence, you know? Because it turns out this CIA operative is actually English. Well, he's not English. He was born in America.
No, the other way around. Other way around. Born in England. Actually, no, you are right. You are right. Sorry, yeah. Born in America, moved to England. Because when I first saw that bit in the movie at the beginning, where they're like, "Oh, I thought all you CIA guys were American." I thought, "Oh God, they've done an Incredible Hulk." Where they have where in the Incredible Hulk movie they have a Russian guy, Blonsky, played by a British actor, and then they have to quickly cover up by going, "Born in Russia, raised in England." So I thought it was that, but surprisingly in the comics, it is exactly the same.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough then. I won't question that.
But it is weird. It is weird. When I first saw it, I thought this sounds like a really, really odd, like an actor cover up kind of job.
It did feel that way to me. Like, I mean, fair enough. If you can get Chitwell in your movie, like, go for it. He's a good actor. But yeah, it did feel like a bit of a hasty rewrite. And actually, we want to point something out on that note later on. So they go to track him down to his house. All the while, Nala's just like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. This is my, end of second act. Time to leave the group, sort of thing. And Andy's just like, okay, see ya. Like, she puts a very minimal resistance to this immortal person that she's desperate to keep in the group, especially when they're down on a few members to let go.
They keep emphasizing as well her phone. Like, she has Freeman has a mobile phone that has like a picture of a mum and her brother on. As Scott obviously said, they've not actually introduced these actors or these people, so this is the only connection we have to her family in any capacity. And they keep kind of referencing it with like Andy taking it off her or giving it back to her, and it's like she's like, "No, here you go. You can go be with your family if you want."
It's a complete personality 180, really, but. And so it means that Andy and Booker go into the house alone. Well, however, later on, Niall is ditching the car and all the guns when she discovers, one of the guns is full of blanks. Wait, what? Or like no ammunition or something. And she's like, oh shit. And then it's revealed, bum, 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 Booker's a traitor.
Yep, that's why he ended up sitting there while his friends got kidnapped. I mean, admittedly, it didn't help that his guts were hanging out, but still, you'd think, oh, we're told to grab all the immortals. Oh, that guy's got his guts hanging out. Who cares? Just put him in a bag and drag him along.
And in fairness to Charlize Theron, for all the problems of this movie, she really has this great acting moment where she finds out she's been betrayed by him. And it's actually, you can really see a lot of the hurt on her face and in the performance, especially when she's tackled by all the goons and is put in handcuffs and stuff before they think she's going to heal. It's really, really good. But here's the problem, though. Earlier in the movie, when they were in the mine or whatever, Booker was talking about how he had a bunch of sons. The youngest one was the last one to die at age 42 from cancer. And apparently he went to him when he was dying, and the son begged him to make him immortal and help him not die, but he couldn't and got rejected because of that. And it's like, oh, so because the big pharma guy is going to use their powers to end disease and stuff, Booker wants to get in on that to make sure that no one has to suffer like his son did. Oh wait, no, that's not the reason. He just doesn't want to be immortal anymore.
To be fair, however, they do also kind of set up that Andy desperately wants to die. She's sick and tired of, this is why she's cynical. She's seen so much of the world. She hates it all. She just wants it to end. And it's kind of implied that he's got that as well. It's just not as obvious because he's kind of this laissez-faire guy who's drinking often. And as you said, they do kind of hint, oh, well, maybe it's because of his son. But at the same time, they also kind of push a little bit of no, I want to die because I've seen so many horrible things, but I have to live with the fact that I saw the worst in my own family. I went from loving my family unconditionally and them loving me to watching them plead and beg and then spit venom at me about how I'm a horrible, awful person because I won't share with them something that I physically can't help them with in the slightest. and that really, as he points out, they will
as a
break your heart.
as a backstory, it works perfectly as a motivation for giving them, betraying the group. It also works, but that's not where they go with, and it just feels less of a subversion and more of a missed opportunity. The backstory still works great. It's just, I don't think it perfectly lines up, but then again, I don't really care that much about this character out of all of them, so it doesn't really have to line up, in fairness.
I mean, he
And
does at least say, hey, if he figures out how we work, he can help loads of people, and he can also figure out how to kill us. So it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, but I do get what you mean. It is a little bit sudden, where he's like, "Oh, by the way, I really want to die." It's like, wait, what? Unlike, I mean, admittedly, unlike Charlize Theron, you didn't have loads of narrative and and loads of monologues explaining it. But Jesus, man.
yeah, and then so they cart both him and Andy off, and with Merrick like, wait a minute, is she still bleeding? Yep. Has she lost her immortality? Was that?
I was gonna say, yeah, because they shot. I don't know if you might want to edit this bit out, but I can't remember. I'm not sure if you mentioned that to subdue Andy earlier on, she was shot because she was still struggling, and they were like, she'll just heal again. Just put a bullet in her, and that'll calm her down. Yeah, she doesn't. She's bleeding out badly.
Yep. And don't worry though, it's a movie wound, so she's basically fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little bit off. Like, I'm an ordinary human being now. Wait, you got shot like in the kidneys?
In the gut.
Yeah, it's like around like your right quadrant of like your waist kind of. So it's meaty and there's a lot of blood coming out everywhere. It's a little bit concerning. You probably lost more blood than than you should be.
And Samari's like, what the hell? It's okay. We'll just we'll get all the information we need out of her anyway. It'll be fine. But then Copley's like, whoa. I know we're all here to, help the world and everything, but you didn't say anything about torturing them. And he's like, yeah, but, I'm Big Pharma, so evil. Hit him on the back of the head. Boom, we're leaving. Niall comes in. Again, nearly called her Niles. Niall comes in later and to rescue them, only to find Copley's the only one there. And it's revealed, it got mentioned earlier, but now it really gets hit home that Copley's wife had ALS. And so that's his own motivation for doing all of this. And
I absolutely hate it. I'm sorry. I hate it. It is the most cliche. It's the worst. Like, this film has a lot of tropes, and as I said, this is the absolute worst one because I could tell this a goddamn mile away. As soon as he mentioned it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a thing. And then when there's a scene after his initial introduction where he like looks at his wife's picture, and I'm like, oh God, this is going to be the entire goddamn reason he's the bad guy in this movie, isn't it? Because his wife died. And then, as you say, he gives this big speech where he's like, look, I just want to help loads of people. I didn't want them tortured though. My wife died. It's like, you are in the, you consistently pushed that you were in the CIA. And with all due respect, the CIA has done a lot of horrible things. So why the hell are you surprised that Big Pharma dude is going to torture these people horribly
He mentions that. Yeah. Like, Big Pharma dude says, oh, like the CIA never disappeared anyone.
That's what boggled my mind. I'm like, why is he this dumb? He is without a doubt the dumbest character in this entire movie. Because as you say, he works for, a somewhat shady, nefarious organization and is completely surprised at, a profit-driven, the worst kind of cliched evil corporation is going to do what you would expect it to do. And B, that like his terrible justification, my wife died, is justification A, for all the torture, B, for all these other people being killed by the immortals. Because, at the end of the day,
he sent people to die to get just proof that they were immortal.
Yeah, it's insane. He is. I mean, I'm not saying the farmer bro isn't the villain here, because he is. He is definitely the bad guy. But this guy is a big, we're supposed to sympathize with him. I have none. He is an asshole. He is using his wife's death as a deflection for him doing all the... It's very much an ends justify the means situation, but it also comes from a guy who seems to be absolutely blind to, like, the most basic motivations of everyone around him. And it just frustrates me.
And it doesn't help the fact that Chiwetel Ejiofor is such a good actor that his speech where he's talking about my wife died is so impassioned and so moving, but you're constantly reminded by how stupid he is. It's just like, oh, he's so stupid. Oh, but he's giving us such an emotional performance. Oh, but he's so stupid. And it's just like, I can't enjoy either how stupid it is or how good he is. So I just kind of get this weird mix. It's good actor, bad character.
It's almost like Ian McKellen giving President Comancho's speech from Idiocracy. Like, it's like, whoa, it's so beautifully eloquent. Oh, but then you listen to it like, but it's so dumb.
Yeah, it's it's a real mix. But so Niall convinces him, or well, they go to London to try and rescue the others, and they get into like the lobby of the building, and then she's like, "Okay, you can go now." What, really? Why? Well, because I'm immortal and you're not, so therefore I should go in alone. Yeah, but what happens if they shoot you in the head and then they go and handcuff you? Shouldn't you have someone to, watch your back? Nope, I'm good. And then they just send him on his way.
To be fair, he did just stab them in the back earlier on for, as we pointed out, kind of dumb reasons. So personally, if I was like, I'm a trained soldier and I'm also a bullet sponge because I'm immortal, I can probably deal with this compared to, this flailing idiot behind him who's like, but I'm in the CIA. He's like, yeah. I mean, unless you literally want to use him as an expendable meat shield, which, could work.
I would trust Kevin Kline's character from A Fish Called Wanda, again from the CIA, more than I would trust this guy from the CIA. But anyway, so Niall fights away through the building and eventually manages to rescue the rest of them. And this is the first time. Well, no, not the first time, but it's the most extended time we get to see the whole group, even Booker. Because they say, okay, look, we're mad at you, but we'll deal with you later. Right now, let's get all our asses out of here.
There is some really beautiful infighting between all of them where they're just yelling at each other like, you're a traitor! Oh, I can't believe it. This is just like it's very much a family squabble.
It's very well done. But then we get to see them fight together and see how just in sync they are. Instantly, they're like, boom, know what they're doing. Don't even have to look at each other. There's a bit where Joe hands Nikki a gun over his shoulder. And just like he just knows Nikki's going to be there. And that's really, really cool.
What's also nice is they have a little speech of Andy where, they say, you don't have to come with us. You're an ordinary person now. You will die if you do this, especially now you've got this big gaping wound, which they have patched her up. The farmer dudes did like put like a big old bandage on her, and presumably they gave her some blood transfusion or something to keep her alive. But she's like, no. I'm the boss. I've always been the boss. I will lead this, to my dying days. And what's interesting again with the choreography is they frequently the immortals use themselves as shields for Andy. So there's a scene where like some dudes with assault rifles start shooting her, and Freeman jumps in front, tanks like 4 shots, then falls down for a second. Andy shoots the guys with a handgun, and then she has healed up enough to get up and keep moving forward. And they kind of keep doing this, rotating around Andy to protect her. Even at one point, having a really great scene where Freeman like yells at Andy to put on some body armor. He's like, "Put the body armor on," as he's like, "No."
That is a good scene, but that is still stupid in retrospect. Just like, you've got everything to gain and nothing to lose, Andy. Come on.
Well, she wants to see this through to the end. It's kind of a pride thing. I think. I mean, it's. I do get what you say. I do understand what you're saying, where it is a little bit silly, but it's very much, this character wants to go out as she lived. She wants to feel like she's doing something good, and if she dies to do it, then so be it. It's, that kind of, I have lived a long and perfect life. I want to die in glorious battle kind of thing.
Yeah. And they fight their way through the building. They take out all the disposable ninjas, including the main disposable ninja, a guy called Keen, who's ex-Special Forces. And then can I just say, I'm not deep in the military, but as a guy from a military family who has known people who are sort of, from that sort of environment, this guy Keen, played by Joey Anser, he talks very much like they talk. That kind of the sort of clipped way they talk. It's I don't know. I just thought that was a very nice touch.
I liked as well in the fight scene with that. Earlier on, when they were dealing with when they were dealing with what is it? Sorry, my notes went for a second. When they were dealing with Nikki and Joe, he shot Joe in the mouth to like keep him down for a second, like literally puts the gun in his mouth and blows the back of his head out. Nikki murders him by I think he like gives him a suplex or something. It just breaks his neck on the ground.
Oh, no, I thought it was the other way around.
Might very well be the other way around. It was a very like the fighting was very frenetic. But either way, he literally goes, "You shot my lover in the mouth. I don't like that," and then just suplexes and breaks his goddamn neck on the floor.
It's so cool. It's so cool. And then Merrick shows up and brief scuffle with him, Andy, and Niall before he gets chopped in the neck with a fucking axe, but that's not enough. And Niall grabs him and jumps out of the window with him all the way down into a car.
What's really fun about that scene as well is earlier on, Freeman had bought Andy's axe of her in like a guitar case, but in the initial scuffle at the very beginning, she lost it, and Farmer Bro Merrick picked it up, and he was kind of marveling over it for a little bit. Now, Harry Melling, as we mentioned, has slimmed down a lot from the Dudley Dursley days. He is now a beanpole of a man. So he looks like a 90-pound weakling, and him like giggling while holding this axe, it's ridiculous. And while he's hiding in like this safe house piece at the end before they all rush in to murder him, he's like the military guy's like, okay, we need to get ready. This is gonna be a siege now. We'll hold up, and he kind of grips the axe a little tighter, and you're thinking, what the hell are you gonna do with that?
Surprised he can even lift it, to be honest.
But... Exactly, it looks like he's gonna fall over holding it. But as you said, he goes to take out Freeman and Andy with it. But they kind of do an interesting thing where they call back to the Russian drug runner scene earlier on, where they're like, "Oh, can you play dead?" And she falls down, and then just as you said, axes him in the neck before taking him for a 50-foot dive out the window straight on top of his car.
It's a very cool denouement, the big action scene, and then they all sort of congregate at the street level, get her out of the car, and just sort of hoof it. And then, as soon as they round the corner, just like huge crowds of people just start coming from around the corner to witness the devastation and everything. And it's just like, where are all these people beforehand? Like, this is a main road. It's a street. It's just like, there were no people there before, but now there's a ton of people. Where do they come from? Is it people's lunch hour or something?
Especially because earlier on in the massive fight sequence, the head special forces dude, he uses a grenade launcher to blow a part of their wall down. Now, admittedly, it's a big building, but even so, like, you'd think somebody in the area go, was that an explosion in that building? And this is like set in the middle of London, so you'd think the police would have been there sooner going, are there terrorists in that building? There seems to be gunfire and explosions going off everywhere.
Oh God, someone call Richard Madden to sort the situation out. But anyway, and so they hoof it, and they they go to this like pub place.
Interestingly, I believe that pub is in Malta, where during an earlier sequence, Joe and Nikki have like a little tender moment where they're like, "Oh, do you remember Malta? Which time? Oh, that time. Yeah, we should go back to Malta again." So I think it's supposed to be set there because it's like, "Yay, we've gone to Malta now."
And meanwhile, Booker is stood outside the place in Malta with Niall discussing about the family and stuff, and how the group is coming to a decision. Then later on, in this sort of little by the water area, Andy goes down to Booker and just like, hey, so it's got to be consequences for what you did. So for 100 years, no talky. You're cut out from the group for 100 years. You're going to be alone for 100 years. And just like, I hope for better, but I expected worse. And it's just like, they could have given a lot worse.
Well, 100 years of banishment is pretty bad, especially when, as he realizes, now that Andy's immortal, he'll never see her again. She will be dead long before he can get back to her.
And as much as I'm not a big fan of the character of Booker, I don't know why, the parting scene with him and Andy is really, really good.
It's funny that you don't like Booker that much. I actually quite enjoyed him. I don't know if it's something about the actor, but he comes across as very gregarious and laissez-faire, and kind of like he kind of radiates like a very thin air of cool. Do you know what I mean? Like he's very chill, and I'm like, I can kind of get that. I mean, obviously when he stabs everyone in the back out of what he thinks is reasonable reasons, because even they are a little bit like, okay, there is maybe a vague point in trying to find a way to heal everyone this, but it's not going to work. The best intentions, and then obviously when it's revealed, oh yeah, we're going to torture everyone to death, horribly. It's like, yeah, that's definitely out.
I mean, I feel like the characters were written to be very cool and laissez-faire, but I don't think Matthias Schoenaerts pull that off completely. He did pull it off a little bit. The guy is definitely kind of cool. I just don't think it's 100% there, but it's there enough. It's not a bad performance. It's not even a bad character, to be honest. It's just not someone I gravitated to as much. And meanwhile, however, then they go back to Copley, who later on in the movie, and now firmly cemented now, reveals to them that before Andy was like, oh, all the things we do, they don't make any bit of difference in the world. But it turns out, actually, yes, they do. All the people they save either go on to do great things or go on to, have descendants who do great things and positively impact the world. And so it gives them a bit of a renewed sort of like, okay, yeah, now we can actually get back into it. Maybe not Andy, because, I mean, she's a badass and all still, but like, if I was immortal for thousands of years, and then I found out suddenly I was mortal, I quit. I give up. I just like, okay, well, now I'm going to settle down, start a family, and live my life properly. I don't have to be a weird immortal mercenary anymore. But apparently that's what she doesn't want, which is fine.
Well, it kind of ties back to the earlier sequence. She's like, no, I'm the boss still. It's never done like an arrogant way. It's just that kind of natural, like, no, I'm not quite done yet, kind of thing. And as you said, it's interesting when they go back to Copley's and there's like this big conspiracy board. In any other kind of situation, you think he's a nutter. Yeah, in any other situation, you think he's a complete nutter because it's like it's papers and strings and ties everywhere. But yeah, having Copley as the guy in the chair at the end, because they're just like, oh, when if anyone ever takes pictures of us anymore, or if any digital footprints left, because obviously they push a big thing in the film is, in the 21st century, it's so hard to disappear now. There's cameras everywhere. You as the CIA guy will clear it all out for us. You'll, as a way to atone for being involved in all of this, you will be our man in the chair, our eye in the sky, helping us help the world in secret.
And that's a very cool idea, and I can totally get behind that, but I mean, maybe this is a cynical thing. Maybe I'll make a very bad immortal. Maybe I'd be way too detached from humanity, but what happens when he dies? What are they going to do then?
Presumably one of them would take over. Or alternatively, they would have gotten somebody else in on the gig, like maybe like an apprentice.
No, maybe. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so I'm good with that. I'm fine. And that's where the movie ends, except there's a 6 months later. Bum, bum, bum.
It's sequel bait time, baby.
Oh, God, yeah. It's such sequel baiting. Booker stumbles into his apartment drunk, but then who does he see inside his apartment? It's Quinn, the lady who we thought was at the bottom of the ocean. I don't care.
Sequel bait.
I mean, I kind of care, but I don't, because it's like, if we had a movie previous to this with just Andy and Quinn going on adventures, ending with her getting drowned, and then we had this movie and it was revealed that she'd come back, then I would care. If they had pulled a Winter Soldier, that would be fine.
Well, but this is actually where this is actually where the comics come in, because this film, the comics have only like just finished their latest arcs. There's two trade paperbacks. The first one basically covers a good chunk of this film. The second one is completely new, but they've taken bits of it and put it in this film, and that ties into a lot of the stuff that is in the second comic book series.
Ah, that'll be why then.
They were nicking it as they were writing it.
Oh, God. It works fine. It's just, I don't think it has as big an impact as it possibly could have. But it's okay, because all in all, I know you've got mixed feelings about this, but I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. I think this is a damn cool movie.
Don't get me wrong. When I say I have, mixed feelings about this, I'm not saying this is a terrible movie. This is not a bad movie in the slightest. This is a perfectly fine, run-of-the-mill action movie with some fantastical elements. However, the way people have been raving about this really hyped me up for something amazing, something serious. And what I got was, this is something I could have gone into any cinema and watched at any time and come out going, it's okay. Again, this isn't bad. I mean, if I was to use my own personal rating system, Now, I'm not usually a numbers guy, but just for ease of use, we'll use a number. Now, in my number system, 1 is impossible. 1 is an atrocity on film that doesn't exist. 10 also doesn't exist because, there's no such thing as perfection. 5 is perfect. 5 is a middle of the road, perfectly average. It's Sunday, you've come in after some drinking, you sit down, you turn something on the watch. It's perfectly fine, standard, average film. Nothing bad about it, nothing too good. I would rate this as a 6. It is just above average. It is pretty decent, kill some time, can have a bit of a giggle, but you don't walk away going, wow, I wish they'd make a billion spin-offs of this, I mean, I think you can. I think there's enough material you can mine for this, but I don't necessarily, as you say, I don't necessarily
feel the need for it.
Yeah, there's not an overwhelming burning urge to go, I want to know what Booker's done in the rest of his life.
Yeah. No. I mean, I completely understand that, and it's just a good, solid, cool movie that we may see more of. There are rumors of a possible sequel, and part of the reason why that last minute scene was in the movie was just so that Greg Rucka could have the opportunity for a sequel if the people wanted them, and if not, well then fine. But and Charlize Theron has said, like, yeah, sure, I'd be up for doing another one if we, let the movie sit a little while, but let's see how things go. And honestly, if I never see another Old Guard movie, I'm fine. But if I do, I'm going to be excited for it, and I'm okay with that.
Certainly. I mean, one thing I find that's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say interesting, but like, who would you say is the protagonist of this film? Because it's kind of centered on Charlize Theron, but at the same time, Kiki Lane, Niall Freeman, is also kind of portrayed as protagonist. And I don't know if they're like dueling protagonists, whether they're deutragonists.
I'd say Charlize Theron's character is the protagonist, but Kiki Lane's character is the audience surrogate.
Yeah. I mean, I hesitate to use the term the everyman, but the point of view character, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. She's the one with whom we're introduced to the world, or at least gets greater understanding of the world and greater depth, as well as a small personal story that we can relate to, as opposed to Charlize Theron's character, which we might not necessarily relate to unless there's a bunch of Highlanders out there who are just like, this movie gets me. But
I'd be down with this being a Highlander crossover, or there being a Highlander cross. That is a movie I would want to watch. Highlander versus Old Guard. That would be a kick-ass movie.
I just want a Highlander reboot. I don't care. I just want a new Highlander movie that's just like has all the good stuff from the first Highlander movie, but with just like
we can wheel out Sean Connery.
He's retired. He does not give a fuck. He won't come back.
Throw enough money at him. Drive a couple of dump trucks up to his house full of pound coins. He'll be down for it.
He does like ridiculously large amounts of money. That's what he demanded when they offered him Gandalf, and apparently they were like, "Could we not?" And he's like, "No." So anyway,
spinning it all round back to Will Smith again briefly. He was also up for playing Morpheus's role in the original Matrix. And Will Smith was supposed to be Keanu Reeves. So we could have, in some alternate timeline, there is a Matrix movie with Sean Connery as Morpheus and Will Smith as Keanu Reeves' character, The One.
Oh my god. Someone fetch me my portal gun!
I just want the Matrix rap. Because he would have made a Matrix rap.
I was about to go into an improvised rap about the Matrix just then and there, but then I thought, no, I shan't do that. I won't. Let's talk about something else. Okay, so you've read the comics. In terms of faithfulness, or even just quality, how does this stack up?
Well, it's really interesting because, like, the first two, or give me a second. I think it's the first or two free issues are actually pretty similar. Like, there's some differences here and there. The Quinn is a different called Noriko instead, because she's Japanese. The actress in the movie is Vietnamese, so they changed the name to be more Vietnamese in origin, which is nice. Because there's this awkward kind of thing in Hollywood where sometimes they have a thing where it's like, oh, Asians can play any Asians, which is weird and not cool.
It always makes me, I mean, even in good movies and good shows played by good actors, like, I mean, a good example is in this TV show, Fresh Off the Boat, which is quite a good comedy series, Randall Park plays a Chinese person. Randall Park is not Chinese; he's of Korean descent, and it's just like
Oh
I
man.
I. I can't be personally offended by that because I'm neither Korean nor Chinese or any kind of Asian ethnicity. And clearly Randall Park isn't offended by that because he's still doing the show and he clearly loves it. But it does feel a bit weird. I can't tell if that's just my privilege or me being overly PC or whatever, but it does feel weird and I don't like it if you can avoid it.
They talk about the interesting thing as well. Unlike Quinn, who was purposefully drowned in an Iron Maiden, in the comics she just falls off a boat.
Whoops.
Yeah, they're on a they mention how like the Immortals are a little bit uncomfortable with being on the ocean because as time's moved on, they've learned how to make boats and whatnot, but it's still incredibly terrifying. And because obviously the early days of the Age of Sail are ridiculously dangerous. You can die and fall off in so many different ways, and that was one of the things that she pointed out was if you fall off, that's it. If you go down the ship, that's it. You're stuck. Which they tie back in with the. I think the intention with the Iron Maiden here was to make it a bit more purposeful. Like there is a reason this happened rather than just random luck or happenstance. You can feel like, oh well, maybe Charlize Theron didn't do enough to save her friend. Or lover, to be fair, because this film heavily hints that they're in like a relationship of some kind, which is interesting because obviously the film's been heavily pushing the kind of diversity angle, both from actors, ethnicities, and sexuality, which is really good to see. But yeah, as I mentioned,
I mean, it helps that this film was directed.
Sorry. I mean, you can cut that out.
I thought you exploded for a second.
No.
It helps that this movie was directed by a black woman, Gina Prince Blythewood, the director of The Secret Life of Bees and Beyond the Lights. No, I'm not kidding. But so
interesting fact: she's the first black woman to film a comic book movie, and they explicitly point out it's a comic book movie, not a superhero movie. So it's
that I'm fine with.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
That's history right there. Oh God, it's officially part of history. So Capers, you have a moral obligation to watch it so you can tell your kids you were there when.
But yeah, some of the other differences, obviously, they talk about the first immortal who died. They witnessed his immortality running out. Lycon.
Oh yeah.
There's differences with Merrick, who, as I point out, is less of a farmer and more of a bro. He's like when you meet him, he's like doing weights and push-ups, and he's got like a blonde fade, and he's just an asshole.
Bro, do you even lift?
Yeah, he's kind of berating Copley in the same way, where he's like, "Oh, dude, you do the deep fakes and other internet bullshit. You could just be selling me crap." And Copley's like, "No, look at my conspiracy board. I have all this information." He's like, "No, I'm fucking with you, man. Don't worry. I've already paid for this. I'm down with it." And interestingly, he says, "I only need one of them," whereas in the film he explicitly, repeatedly points out, "I want all of them." They rush through Freeman's stuff quite interestingly. None of this like, oh, she's a freak. Oh, it's a bit weird. 1 minute she just kind of notes that she doesn't have a scar. The next minute, Andy turns up in the middle of the night, and there's no other like dudes that she beats up. She just literally turns up, shines a flashlight in Freeman's face, then clonks her on the head, and then just drags her off. And she breaks Niall's phone. And I found that interesting because of how many times they make a big deal out of this phone. Oh, my brother. Oh, my mother. And she just gets the phone, kind of looks and goes, and it just stamps on it.
I think that would have been... I mean, it's weird because the guy who wrote the graphic novel is the same guy who did the screenplay. And, the studio's always going to interfere slightly, but...
I think it's just padding, man. They needed this film to be a bit longer. And some of this stuff could be expanded on, like that whole scene. And all the stuff that happened on the plane... like her getting tied up. They had that really cool fight scene that they have, because obviously they had that kind of who's the dominant one fight scene, and all the stuff with the Russian drug runner dude playing dead. That's not there. That they just literally say we're getting on a plane, and then the next scene that you see them, they're just off in Paris.
But it feels more authentic because Greg Rucka is the guy doing the story. And so it's clearly changes that he's okay with, presumably.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they are good to some degree or another. Like, in the comic, they just immediately, as soon as they get off the plane and go to the French safe house, they've already Joe and Nikki have already been kidnapped, and Booker's there with his guts hanging out. So that they never even do any introduction. They don't do any of the introductions until much later on. Another interesting thing about all these immortals is they heal very differently. You see like parts of their heads blown off and they heal back. In one sequence, Andy has both her like hands are like amputated through like some accident that's off panel. And she kind of goes to sleep, and then when she wakes up, they're there again. So they can clearly, in the comics at least, they can clearly grow back a hell of a lot more than just, ordinary wounds. I'm guessing for the film at least it's, kind of a mixture of the CGI is really expensive, and also this might make them a bit overpowered, guys, if they can just walk through all of this. They play up a bit more. In a contrast to how I was kind of saying, hey, Booker feels kind of cool. In the comics, they play up that he's a scumbag a hell of a lot heavier. They point out like he didn't join the Napoleonic Army on his own. He was conscripted because he was a counterfeiter, and it was either joining or being sent to the army. So he joins the army, and he ends up like he ends up deserting. So they hang him, and he's like being frozen before he wakes up again. And they kind of push. Yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit. So that when the inevitable betrayal does happen, which is exactly the same, you feel a hell of a lot less bad. You're like, oh, he's scum. We're really pushing that angle.
It also helps the fact that nowadays we're so used to there being a surprise villain that we automatically assume that the person who seems less likely to betray everyone is actually going to be the one who betrays someone. So showing the obvious betrayer obviously betraying people is actually kind of refreshing at this point.
Also, the farmer bro is a lot less reluctant about hurting the people. Like he literally says, he's like, oh well, if we can't get their immortality from the basic stuff, we'll just turn them into slurry until we do. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man.
Oh God.
Yeah. He's at least the Weasley Merrick in Weasley Harry Potter. The Weasley Merrick at least is like, well, we want these guys alive. We're going to put them in a vault and study them for years. We'll dissect them. But we want our investment to live. Whereas they're like, well, if we can't get it initially, we'll just mulch them until we can get something out of them.
There's worse things than death. There's worse things than death. And so, I mean, this all culminates in just something that I think needs a lot more attention. Obviously, this movie is getting a lot of attention, but clearly I have got to go and read this graphic novel, goddamn. And it's just, there's something that needs to be shined a little bit of a spotlight on, and then maybe we'll move on, maybe we won't. But for now, we just got a little bit of light on something that's a nice and pleasant distraction. I had fun watching this. Did you?
Yeah, it was as I said before, it certainly killed some time. It was flashy at some points. Not the choreography is pretty decent. It's very much I ate my lunch. I sat down. I went, I gotta watch Old Guard. Flicked it on. Turned my brain off. Enjoyed it. Had a good time.
It's paced decently. It takes moments to let things sink in when they need to, and it hypes up the action when it needs to. It's just a damn solid movie, and frankly, we need that nowadays. I'm surrounded by movies that either have to be excellent, or are completely shit, or are just forgettable. And this is something that's none of those things. It's just good, decent, solid, wholesome fun for the whole family, featuring violent murders.
And on
that note, I think we're gonna.
Sorry, no, go on.
No, go on.
I'll say, and wonderful amounts of diversity and modern interpretations of love and how that all works, and it's really beautiful to see.
It is absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And on that note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Jimbo, for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Scott.
And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends. Shout out from the rooftops! And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, like the various times to talk about various other Netflix properties. She-Ra. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at PodCapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone with the red and blue 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been PodCapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!